Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I wanted to address the subject of controversial issues and discussions and topics in this video, because sometimes as a museum professional you come across subjects that can be considered a little bit controversial, or you will have to engage in discussions where you know there will be lots of different viewpoints and you feel you have to tread a little bit carefully here. But at the same time, you also have to address a topic from a historical point of view and according to historical sources. As always, if you like the content of these videos, please like them, subscribe to the channel and add your comments. It's always great to hear from you. Now, just to have a look at what can be thought of as controversial subjects, there are a few I think that always brings to mind, like racism, inequality, be it gender inequality, minority groups. It can be human rights or animal rights, political issues, religious issues. It can also be discussions around social or health issues, so for example mental health, or discussions around abortions, or it can be medical treatments, for example of mental health problems. It can also be economical or financial issues, private, social, global, industrial economy issues. Sometimes a discussion or a debate can be trending, so to speak. It can be very dominant in a society at a specific time, and then it fades out a little bit. Or some topics can be very controversial for a very long time. But no matter what, it's very important that museums are not afraid of approaching them, and they know how to actually embrace the discussion. Now, I want to use a little case study and a little practical example from a museum I visited about a year ago in Seville, in Spain. It's the Spanish Bullfighting Museum in Seville. It's situated next to the oldest bullfighting arena in Seville, still in use. As a visitor, you go on a little tour around the galleries in the museum. You're not allowed to walk around on your own, but you're taken on a little tour, and you are taken through the history of bullfighting through various objects and collection, everything from artworks, drawings, paintings, to history about the specific race of bulls used in bullfighting, the matador and his role and his clothing, very flamboyant and colourful clothing, the different equipment used, the rules of the game, etc., etc. So it's a very thorough view you get into also the symbolism and the philosophy, historical philosophy around this, let's call it a sport in lack of a better word. And then the tour ends with visitors being taken out into the arena, and it's from an architectural perspective a beautiful, stunning place with, I think, around 12,000 seats actually, so a lot of people. And as I said, it's still in use. It's still very much an activity that is practiced. Now, I should say the museum doesn't actually condone or approve bullfighting. It tells and interprets the history of this very peculiar activity. And I have to say, on a personal note, that as a museum professional and also someone who's being brought up in a part of the world where this is in no way acceptable, it's in no way acceptable to treat animals this way, or to indeed observe animals being killed for the purpose of entertainment. You walk around this museum with a very ambivalent feeling, because on one hand you don't in any way accept this kind of treatment of animals, but on the other hand I have to say I was very impressed by the fact that the museum had managed to actually tell the story of bullfighting through the historical sources and through artworks and so on in a very professional way. So that was done in a really professional and in a way a very beautiful way. In many ways, this particular activity leads your thoughts back to the first Colosseums and to a time where men were fighting men, men were fighting animals, animals were fighting animals for the purpose of entertainment. And you had these huge crowds of spectators watching. And death was a very present thing, and being killed in a fight was a very present thing. And it's not a world I think many people can relate to, luckily, nowadays. But there was a time when this was a very present and very normal thing to observe. And therefore, we have an obligation historically to address these kind of things. Another example is the current Black Lives Matter discussion, which links back to slavery. Now, slavery still happens some places in the world, but I don't think many people now condone it in any way. But nonetheless, for a very long period of time, this happened. It was part of human history, and therefore we have an obligation to address it. There are various ways, of course, to approach controversial subjects and topics. One of the first things to remember is that when you are displaying, interpreting and communicating a controversial topic, that does not in any way mean that you are condoning it. You are addressing this from a historical point of view, based on the historical remains, materials, sources you have available. That leads me to the next point, which is key to these historical sources, the objects, the remains, the material, as you would in any other museum or heritage work, any other piece of, let's say, an exhibition or publication you were researching, treated the same way. When you know that there is a bit of controversial discussion that may spring from an exhibition or a piece of research, embrace it, be prepared for it. And remember, it's not actually up to museums or to us as museum professionals to tell visitors or indeed future generations what they should think. We display it according to the present time and according to the discussion and debate that's going on right now. But we have no idea how future generations in 50, 100 years' time are going to look at these topics and approach them. We have no idea how these remains are going to be interpreted and researched in future galleries and displays. So it's not actually up to us to tell future generations how they should do it, or indeed to tell visitors how they should relate to this. Having said that, of course, museums should also express viewpoints and help shape opinions about what is considered to be right and wrong nowadays, especially in order to form a learning or an educational perspectives. That are certain things in today's society that is no longer tolerated, and there are certain reasons for this. So, of course, that's very much part of the discussion and the debate and the entire learning perspective as well. But it's not actually up to you to tell a visitor what they should take away with them. Finally, focus on the fact that you can, through historical discussions and sources, broaden people's perspectives and views, and also tolerance for the fact that there was a time when what we now think is deeply unacceptable and controversial and perhaps completely unthinkable, there was a time when that was normal, when it was tolerated. Remember that you're conserving and preserving for the future. You want to keep these discussions alive so that they can be learned from now in present time, but also very much in the future. Discuss and communicate for the present. So when you engage in discussions or debates, embrace what is up at the moment. It will vary, and the viewpoints will vary, of course, but embrace the fact that a discussion is happening and that people are actually still interested in these things. And also, of course, the last point, learn from the past. That's probably the fundamental reason why we have museums, collections, why we interpret, why we research, and so on. We want to get a little view into a time that once was and to learn from it. It's never easy embarking upon a controversial topic or discussion, and often it doesn't happen deliberately. Sometimes it happens a bit as part of something else, as part of another discussion, and then suddenly controversial bits or viewpoints turn up. No matter how you approach this, don't be afraid of it, because it is part of human nature that we have always done. We have always had peculiar activities, interests, hobbies, and peculiar viewpoints. They will change, and some of the things that we believe is perfectly normal nowadays will probably not be seen as such in 100, 200 years' time. And I think it's very important that we remember that our tolerance, our learning perspectives, our views of each other and of the world is constantly changing. And that's very much something museums and heritage institutions have to address as well. Let me know your thoughts on this. It's always great to hear from you.